presentation of Fox Sports.
We are Fox. We are Minnesota.
Eduardo Nunez got the game started out in a big way. The first ever leadoff inside the park home run for the Twins. They smacked out 15 hits along the way, and they went on to an impressive 6-4 victory over the Tampa Bay Rays last night. Along the way, Nunez, his 17th multi-hit game. Young Ho Park, his first career 3-hit game. Max Kepler, the Berlin native, couple of big hits, couple of big RBIs, his first 2 in the bigs, and the Twins 5-2 now in their last 7 against the Tampa Bay Rays. It was a soggy day here in the Twin Cities, but the rain has subsided. We are going to have baseball and on-time baseball for game number 2 between the Twins and the Tampa Bay Rays. For the visitors, Jake Odorizzi off a very good start against the Yankees, but his road ERA significantly higher at 4.50 against Ricky Nolasco off a very impressive start, his best of the year on the road in Seattle. Welcome inside the ballpark. It looks like a decent night for baseball. There are clouds, but the rain is gone, and the Twins are going to try to build off what they did last night. 15 hits. 2 of those hits were Max Kepler's, just 23 years old, from Berlin, Germany. His first 2 RBIs in the bigs, and we caught up with him earlier today about the comfort level he now has here at the bigs.
It's always amazing being called up, you know, even if it's the 3rd time. I appreciate it every time, and yeah, I feel like mentally, you know, I'm starting to clear stuff out of my head each time I step up to the plate. I'm starting to control, you know, the jitters and stuff that I used to have every time I got up to bat. So yeah, I feel I'm making progress.
Kepler bats 7th and plays right field. They'll try to provide some offense for a bullpen that's been rolling late. When we come back, Dick and Jack expand on the bullies on the back end.
Twins baseball on Fox Sports North is presented by Menards. Save big money at Menards on all your home improvement needs. and by Sanford Orthopedics and Sports Medicine, for the everyday competitor in all of us. Off and on rain showers throughout the day in Minneapolis. The tarp was on the field all afternoon long, but we'll get started on time. Game 2 between the Rays and the Twins, and we welcome you to Target Field. Dick Bramer, Jack Morris for Game 2. Minnesota Twins won the opener last night thanks largely to a bullpen that as of late has pitched awfully well for the Twins.
Over the last 9 games, you can't ask for a lot more than what you're getting out of the Twins bullpen. All year long, the Twins have been looking for some part of the game to be consistent, and they've shown a little consistency as of late. Kevin Jepsen picking up the save last night. Brandon Kinsler doing a really good job, and Ryan Presley also contributing last night. But over the last 9 games, it's more consistency, and that's what the Twins are going to need out of the bullpen if they're going to contend at all. The starters need to start picking it up, and maybe tonight Ricky Nolasco will give that bullpen a little rest.
Yeah, consistency is a key word in the rotation as well. Nolasco pitched well his last time out, hoping to make it 2 in a row. Haven't been enough highlights for the Twins this year. Maybe the highlight was the 3-game sweep that the Twins had in Seattle, and Ricky Nolasco pitched the final game of that series and pitched well enough to pick up the win in that game, and now he'll hope to make it 2 good starts in a row. Nolasco hoping to lead the Twins to a win here tonight, hoping that they can put together a good homestand.
Well, we just talked about consistency out of the bullpen, and maybe with Ricky's last start, he can build upon that and start having a little consistency himself in that starting rotation and lead this starting rotation into some more consistency.
Nolasco hoping to take on and defeat a Tampa Bay team that he has not had a great deal of success against. Kevin Cash in his 2nd year. The team is really struggling right now. They've lost 5 straight, lost 11 of their last 13. And the Menards batting order for the Rays in Game 2. Brandon Guyer leading off. Then Brad Miller, Evan Longoria, Logan Morrison, Steven Souza Jr., Corey Dickerson, Mikey Matuk, and then Taylor Motter, followed by Hank Conger.
And they're going to be facing right-hander Ricky Nolasco. He's making his 11th start of this 2016 season. You see the numbers there for Ricky. He won his last start in Seattle, which is a good sign. His previous win to that was way back at the end of April 21st at Milwaukee. So there's been a little bit of lull in between, but Ricky maybe is getting on track himself. Well, let's hope so. The Twins picked up a nice win last night, and he needs to follow that up with a good outing today.
The April starts were pretty solid. The May starts were pretty awful, and now we'll see what he does in his first June start of the year. The Northland 4 defense for the Twins. Grossman in left, Buxton in center, Kepler in right, Loof and Nunez and Dozier and Bauer the infielders, and Suzuki back behind the plate. Lance Barksdale will be calling balls and strikes. Angel Hernandez at first, Will Little, Ted Barrett on the bases. And of course, this is a 4-game series, so all 4 umpires will have a chance behind the plate.
Well, Paul Molitor going with the same lineup, basically same defense as he used last night to win a game against Tampa.
And Nunez with a couple of hits again last night. Manning shortstop. He needs to be in the lineup. Nunez does, and as of late that means less playing time for Eduardo Escobar at short. Nolasco ready. Geyer in the box, and we're underway. And a first pitch strike.
Last night we talked so much about location of the pitch in the strike zone, and something to watch for you younger players tonight is where that catcher sets up and how familiar the pitcher is with hitting that target.
Lazy fly to left. Grossman there, 1 away.
That's efficient. 2 pitches, 1 out.
Last night Phil Hughes got it out on the very first pitch. 1 down, and now Brad Miller. There's Hughes. He did not give the Twins a deep start. First couple innings went great, and then the next 2 didn't go very well at all. Taylor Rogers pitched the next couple innings, got credit for his first major league win. 5 nearly perfect relief innings after Hughes left allowed the Twins to win a ball game. Miller, the shortstop, with 1 down. Outside ball 1. The Twins, incredibly, well, maybe if you've looked at the 1-loss record this year, it doesn't surprise you, but the Twins with a team ERA coming into the game today of 5.00. And Nolasco's ERA 5.28, but it came down significantly in his start against Seattle. Missing the inside corner, 2-1.
The trouble with earned run averages is early in the season you just don't have enough innings to really know where you're standing. So it's going to take some time for some of these starters and even the guys in the bullpen who've had a couple tough outings to get that ERA back to respectability.
2 down. Grossman with another chance, and that'll bring up Longoria. So there are the Twins at 5.00. Oakland 4.63, and there's a pretty big gap between Oakland and the Twins, and Detroit trying to contend, but their biggest issue is their pitching.
You know, the surprising number there is Boston. There's a team in first place and they're crushing the baseball, so they can afford to give up some runs.
2 down, and now Longoria hit a 2-run home run in the ball game last night. Strike 1. And now a ball, 1-1.
You can see Kurt Suzuki pretty much staying away from Evan Longoria. You know, he's a guy that does extend his arms and can still pull that ball if he's looking for it.
Deep to center, and Buxton started over, now going back, and at the wall leaps, and it is gone. A home run to straightaway center field.
Well, I know more than get it out of my mouth, and there's the result. The ball's out away, and you can't. I'm puzzled by the fact that that pitch is very, very effective if you pitch inside and show that you're willing to come off the plate in. But that's a good pitch. It's basically on the black away. But when you've got a guy who's smart like Evan Longoria and can extend his arms and drive the ball, he starts hunting that ball away, and there's the result.
And now Logan Morrison. Popped up a foul ball that'll reach the seats. Nothing new for the Rays. They are second in the American League in home runs hit to the Seattle Mariners. And I don't know too many people in baseball who would have thought that the Seattle Mariners, Tampa Bay Rays would be the top two teams in the home run hitting department.
I missed that pick, I guess.
And a strike called. Longoria hitting his 11th home run of the year.
That right there was a good pitch. The ball started off the plate and tailed back on the inside part. You could see how Morrison just kind of froze. That ball surprised him a little bit. He saw it come out of his hand as a ball and kind of gave up on it.
Pulled to first. Mauer will go to the bag and clean up the first inning. Longoria with a home run to center field, and the Rays take the first lead. Player with 10 or more home runs. The team has 74, and Longoria has 11 of those. Paul Molitor hoping that he can continue to see his team beat the Rays. The Menards batting order has Eduardo Nunez leading off. Then Joe Mauer, Brian Dozier, Trevor Plouffe, Robbie Grossman, Young Ho Park, Max Kepler, Kurt Suzuki, and Byron Buxton.
They got their hands full against tonight's starter for Tampa Bay, Jake Odorizzi. He's making his 12th start and has yielded 2 hits or fewer in 3 straight starts. Took a no-hitter perfect game into the game for a while last time against the Yankees. Did not get the win.
Nunez in the box. Tough act to follow. Last night hit a drive to right field. Brandon Guyer had some issues with it and ended up getting an inside the park home run. And now off the bat foul just short of the second level here at Target Field. 1-1.
You haven't seen that too many times where a ball gets in on Eduardo Nunez. He's been barreling up the baseball fairly regularly, and you've got to have pretty good movement like that ball that Odorizzi just threw.
Nunez lunges and chops it foul. Coming into the play tonight, Nunez tied for 4th in the American League in hitting. Xander Bogaerts leading at 348. Victor Martinez at 337. David Ortiz at 335. Then Jackie Bradley Jr. and Eduardo Nunez tied for 4th. Skies have cleared a little bit. At least it stopped raining. Sun trying to break through here at Target Field, and we have one of those windows to get this game in, we believe.
Let's hope it's a big window.
1-2, big enough to squeeze this game in.
That's
anyway.
right.
Chopper to short. Miller charges, flips, and Nunez retired, 1 away. That'll bring up Joe Mauer. Tonight's Toyota key stat. His 8th inning single last night gave him career hit number 1,750. Moves him into 4th place all time in Twins history, passing Kent Hrbek.
Well, if you're going to get that many hits, you're going to have a few swinging bunts like that one that Joe got last night.
Yeah.
They all count as hits, and certainly Joe would take it. But yeah, that's quite a group of guys right there.
It's interesting, of those 5 names, only one of them played elsewhere.
Yeah.
Rod Carew got another 1,000 hits with the Angels. And Mauer takes outside, ball 1.
Well, if you're going to get that many hits with one team, you better be on that team for a while.
One would think, of course we have no way of knowing, but one would think Joe will play his entire career with the Twins. Guess that's up to Joe and the team to figure that out. 1-1. Joe's batting average starting to climb again, up to 283. Based on what we've seen, and I'm curious to get your reaction, 1-1. Tap foul. Based on what we saw in April and toward the end of May into June, I would not be surprised to see Mauer contend for a batting title. You know, he had a 2-week stretch, maybe 3-week stretch there where it was really kind of tough on him, but in terms of his batting average. But we've seen, I think, extended periods of time where he seemed like the Joe Mauer of old than we have seen in the last 2 years.
Yeah, and it's hard for me to predict. You know, all I can say is to win a batting title, you have to have consistency over an entire season.
Right.
And that's not necessarily easier as you age. You know, some of the younger guys, red hot right now. A couple Boston players are really lighting it up. Daniel Murphy in the National League hovering around 400. But can they sustain that over the course of 162 games? That's a tough question to answer.
One and two. Odorizzi's been awfully good over his last 3 starts. He's got an early 1-0 lead. He's hardly given up hits, much less runs in his last 3 starts.
He's been really stingy with hits.
In the dirt, 2-2.
You can notice already in this short sample size of pitches that he's thrown how the ball really has been moving, and especially darting down. He's not throwing a lot of pitches in that middle of heart of the plate that we saw both starters last night throw a lot of the hits that were given up.
And fastball at 92. Mauer gets a swing and a miss.
Yeah, that fastball right there at 92 seemed like it was 99.
Northland Ford defense for the Rays, and that's one area too where they really struggled defensively. The big blow to them, the injury to Kevin Kiermaier in center field. Mikey Matuk is in center now. Dickerson and Souza on either side. Longoria, Miller, Mater, Morrison, and veteran Hank Conger behind the plate.
Yeah, the only change there is Jim Hickey, the pitching coach, is there with Kevin Cash. Is Hank Conger behind the dish.
Ball 1 to Brian Dozier. Hit a home run to tie the game last night at 4.
Got one of the craftiest RBIs you'll ever see. Hit by pitch, run scores, RBI. You need a few of those too, I think.
That's hit to left, deep to the corner, chased by Dickerson. And a foul ball just to the left of the stripe underneath the foul pole. It did not have enough distance to get out, almost did. And it looked like it missed by inches from hitting that yellow stripe.
Off the crack of the bat, you thought for sure that was going to go, but didn't have quite the legs to get there, and you could see clearly that that ball landed to the left of the foul pole, or the stripe, on the padding there.
Dozier will retreat with a 1-1 count.
So much for Brian Dozier trying to shoot the ball to right. He's still pull happy. I guess if he gets pitches like that he can handle, nobody's really going to argue about it. But now, as the count gets deeper, that's when you have to start thinking about shooting the ball the other way when there's only one man on that side of the field.
You can see where Conger set up off the plate. The pitch delivered there, taken for a ball.
That's where they're going to pitch him. The whole league, both leagues, right now know that that's going to be the tough one for Brian Dozier to handle.
2-2. Rays got their run on a 2-out home run. See what Dozier can get done in the bottom of the inning with 2 outs. Off the plate again, 3-2 with Plouffe on deck. Foul. What's amazing, here's Dozier, an established pull hitter, right? And in the prior at bat, Mauer, a left-handed batter, is even more an opposite field hitter than Dozier is, at least based on how the Tampa Bay outfield is playing. You can see where everyone is. They were pulled more toward left field when Mauer was up. Swing and a miss. And a 92-mile-per-hour fastball up strikes out both Mauer and Dozier.
Velasco takes the mound tonight, trying to build off his best start of the season at Seattle last Sunday. 6 innings, just 2 runs against. His second win of the year. Paul Mauer, his manager, said it was the aggressive nature of his fastball and the velocity, which was up, that allowed him to dictate terms and intimidate the Mariners. We'll see if he can get back-to-back wins here tonight in Game 2 against the Rays.
Kevin Gorg looked like he was at the auto show.
Well, he's out there near our set in right field. That's where they usually park a car in case of hail damage.
Strike one to Souza Jr., Steven Souza Jr., then Corey Dickerson and Mikey Matuk. That's poked to left, and Grossman has another chance. Keeping him busy out there. 1 down.
Good result on a pitch that maybe, just maybe, Ricky Nolasco caught a break. That was a little bit of a hanging breaking ball, but got a good result.
And now Dickerson. Dickerson in left field. 9 home runs, but a sub-200 batting average. Down and in, a ball. Velasco gave up a home run in Seattle, but just 2 earned runs. 3 hits in 6 innings. Just off the outside corner, 2-0. Velasco in the middle of his 3rd of a 4-year contract. Foul back.
You just saw those numbers for Dickerson. He's got 9 home runs, batting right around 200 at $1.99, 46 strikeouts. It's just contagious in baseball.
missing inside now, 3-1. And Matuk on deck. Hooked foul. Watch out.
Now that pitch right there, you might say, wow, he got away with one. Actually, that was a good pitch. It was off the plate in. Dickerson tried to get his hands out early, and the only way he's going to hit that ball, although you can see that Suzuki's trying to set up outside, but the only thing he can do with that ball is pull it foul if he puts the barrel of the bat on the ball. Now he goes away, gets the pitch he's looking for, and gets a lot better result.
To Hopper to Mauer for out number 2. Time now for greater coverage of baseball, brought to you by T-Mobile. News and notes from Major League Baseball last night. How about the Padres, who were leading 12-2 in the 6th inning and ended up losing the ball game 16-13. And then the Orioles hit 7 home runs last night. Mark Trumbo hit a couple of them. And the Rockies a couple nights before hit 7 home runs against the Reds.
It's hard for me to ask this question to you because, in effect, you've been a season ticket holder for a long time.
Right.
Getting to watch every single game. But is that the kind of game, as a fan, you would love to go watch?
No. And we've talked about this, you know, and of course I work with Bert primarily, and not out of deference to him. To me, I find, well, 1-0 10-inning games are the extreme, but a well-pitched ball game for me is infinitely more enjoyable to watch than when they're 5 3-run home runs and, you know, nobody can rest easy even with a 6-run lead. 1 and 2.
You know what, though? I bet if we took a survey, most people would rather see 5 home runs.
Yeah, I don't doubt that at all.
Yeah, I think it's just people that appreciate the pitching. But, you know, last night's game was a lot of fun because it went back and forth.
This game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Last night's Twins-Mariner game, or Twins-Rays game.
2-2 to Matuk. Popped up weakly near first. And Mauer has a chance in foul ground to finish off a 1-2-3 inning.
Ricky does a nice job of locating his pitches there.
May, not Odorizzi. 34 innings in May, just 19 hits, and in his last 3 starts, no more than 2 hits allowed in any of those 3 starts.
Pretty amazing stuff, and you can see by this video just the kind of stuff he has. His fastball, surprising already. We've seen Dozier and Mauer strike out at 92 miles an hour. It looks like 100 miles an hour the way it sneaks up on him.
Down and away to Trevor Plouffe, ball 1. He retired the first 16 batters he faced in his last start against the Yankees. Gave up just 1 hit, but it was a 2-run home run, and he took the loss. 1-1.
Well, he's very short and compact. There's not a lot of body movement. It's a simple delivery. Still head. Roy Smalley talks about hitters with a still head. Well, pitchers, when possible, the stiller their head, the less movement that glove has. And it's hard to be a quarterback when you want to be a pitcher. You don't hit a moving target. I used to yell at Mike Heath, my catcher, because he would be a guy to shift really late. I go, Mike, I'm not a quarterback. I'm a pitcher. Sit still. Of course, he loved to tease me back. So
1-2 to Plouffe, leading off the Twins' second. Just off the corner. Lance Barksdale's been pretty rigid with that outside corner.
See the last pitch right on the outside corner, but according to Fox Tracks, it's a ball. And I think you stay there as a pitcher. And there you go, right there. The umpire will start opening up that plate if you can show him you're consistent in the same spots.
How far was pitch 3 from pitch 4?
Well, literally
5 from 4.
I mean, 4 is underneath 5, so I think you've got to give him the call, don't you?
And yet you can understand why Plouffe would mutter on his way back to the dugout. If pitch 4 was a ball, why isn't pitch 5 a ball?
Yeah, you understand that, but hang with him. That's all I can say about the hitter. If pitchers, it's always been that way. If a pitcher shows an umpire, and it might take an inning or two for him to open up, but if you show that you can stay there, eventually they will start giving it to you. Odorizzi's just painting right now. This is fun to watch if you like pitching, because he is doing what pitchers do, throwing the ball where he wants to with a variety of pitches.
On the ground, weakly to first, picked up by Morrison, and he beats Grossman to the bag. 2 down.
Let's look at Odorizzi's pitch selection this season. He's got a variety of pitches that you can see there, primarily fastballs, and when you can throw it and spot it the way he does, that's going to be your primary go-to pitch. Everything revolves around your fastball, but he's got a split finger, a good slider, and that curveball. The ball just really kind of dives down, so he's got them all working.
Young Ho Park with 3 hits in the game last night and a walk, but the 3 hits went to 3 different fields. 1 to left, 1 to center, 1 to right. And as much as the 3 hits were a welcome sight, I think just the way he gathered those hits was probably encouraging to Tom Bernansky. 1-0 to Park.
He's throwing first pitch strikes. That's another key. He's faced 6 guys and, or excuse me, 1 ball strikes.
1-1 to Park. And Park lays off 2-1. Park has been stuck on 9 for a while in the home run department. See if the confidence he might have gained last night will lead to a long ball here tonight. 3-1. And I suppose too, even the walk, Paul Molitor talked about that with Park last night, taking pitches that he has seen Park swing at. Hitters talk about seeing the ball well, and sometimes that manifests itself in a walk as much as a hit. And Park will take another walk with 2 down in the second.
I couldn't agree more. I think when a guy's struggling at the plate, it's usually because he's jumping or rushing, or his body's trying to get ahead, his arms are tired, his legs are tired, whatever it is. And I think the best way to really make a change, make a difference, is track the ball. And sometimes that might be striking out looking, but at least you're seeing more than 1 pitch, and pretty soon you're going to recognize that pitch again.
Here is Kepler. A couple of run producing hits in the game last night. Lifted to left, a foul ball, 1 strike. The way Paul Molitor describes Kepler reminds me of how coaches and managers describe the guy you played with in Toronto, John Olerud. Tall guy, left-handed hitter, gap-to-gap guy, occasional power, but a lot of doubles. And I think that's how the Twins project Kepler.
In all my Major League Baseball seasons, I played with John Olerud when he flirted with 400 all year in 1992, I believe it was. And of all the hits, and he came close to 200 hits, I bet 95% of them were line drives.
Yeah.
That's what Paul was referring to.
Foul back. That's 1-2.
He just had a very pretty swing, and all the technical things about a guy's swing he was doing right. Mainly his head was still.
Kepler's got kind of the same frame that Olerud had.
A little thinner right now,
Yeah.
but he'll grow into it. It was fun watching him last night, getting his first major league RBI and hitting the ball hard a couple times.
Up and away, 2-2. Kepler getting a chance because Miguel Sano was put on the disabled list with a hamstring strain. And Terry Ryan said before the game today that he doesn't expect Sano will be ready in 15 days.
Well, think about it. That's a big hamstring.
That's what Paul Molitor said. He said, there's, you know, it's not a severe strain or anything, but Miguel's hamstrings are different than anybody else's.
I used to tease people about if I ever had a heart attack, the earth would shake, you know, because I'm all heart. and just said, no, I mean, he had to have the ground shake when that hamstring blew there crossing first base.
2-2 to Kepler. On the ground through for a hit.
There you go.
Park will round second and gain third base. So Kepler, not again just the hit, but he fouled off some 2-strike pitches, kept the at bat alive, and ended up with a single to center.
Well, hits have been hard to come by off Odorizzi, and this is the first Twins hit of the ball game. The ball was sinking down, but watch his head, how he stayed on the ball. He tracked the ball all the way to point of contact. We were talking about that last night. And you're going to have pretty good results if you have good hand-eye coordination and you can watch that ball hit the barrel of the bat.
Twins trying to get something done here with 2 away. Plouffe and Grossman retired, then Parks walked, now a single by Kepler, and Suzuki will try to tie the game. Second baseman Motter almost playing behind the second base bag. Smothered by Conger, ball 1.
Take another look at Max Kepler's base hit and how still his head stays and how he focuses on that baseball right down all the way across the plate.
Kepler said before the game today he's finally channeling, I guess, or controlling the nervous feeling he had every time he stepped in a batter's box.
Yeah, I remember.
Up here.
Exactly, and I'm laughing only because I think almost everybody that puts on a major league uniform for the first month or two feels that. It doesn't matter what position you play. There is something different about the now acknowledging the fact you're in the big leagues, your lifelong dream.
Suzuki swings and misses.
Like Kurt pulled off a little bit there trying to hit the ball to some county north of here.
Tying run at third. And Kepler so far with the only Twins hit of the ball game.
Opportunity for the Twins to get right back in it here. Might not get a lot of them off Odorizzi tonight.
Up high, and it's 2-1.
See Jake just trying to reach back a little, getting a little extra there. That was one of his harder fastballs at 93. But
yeah, you look at that though, 40 pitches already.
Yeah, well, he's had a bunch this inning. He had a quick 1-2-3 first inning. 18 pitches in the first inning, so 22 by my math.
A called strike, and Suzuki doesn't like that. Shaking his head. 2-2.
See the ball strike ratio.
Conger steps in front of the plate.
I gotta wonder if catchers get away with a little bit more of argument as a hitter, because they have communication. They talk, especially in between innings. They can get away with, as long as they're not looking at the umpire, they can read them the riot act, and the umpire won't throw them out unless they call him some naughty name.
Foul tip, and another high fastball gets another strikeout. 4 strikeouts for Odorizzi, and the Rays have a lead. And the foul ball down the left field line and a face plant in an effort to get a $5 baseball.
They're more than $5, but I don't know if that was worth it.
Baseball on Fox Sports North is presented by CenturyLink. Switch to CenturyLink Prism TV for an advanced TV experience. Learn more at cprismtv.com. Ricky Nolasco's first pitch to Taylor Motter is up and away, ball one, and then Hank Conger will bat, and then Brandon Geyer will bat. Only run of the game on a Longoria home run in the first. Off-speed pitch gets a swing and a miss. Breaking ball over the inside corner, and it is 1-2. Looking at Nolasco's starts, we talked about the difference between April and May. And a slower breaking ball at 75 clips the corner, one away.
A lot of break to that ball, up and down, but great location for it. Ricky spun up a beauty there. Let's watch the location where Suzuki catches that ball, doesn't even move his glove. We don't have to look at Fox tracks because the umpire said strike three.
Here's Conger. And a strike call. As ineffective as Nolasco has been at times this year, particularly in May, he's had just one start this year where he's pitched less than 5 innings. That was 2 starts ago against the Royals. And I think we've seen it enough over the last 6 years, and too often again this year, those extremely short starts.
Well, the Twins had several of them back to back, and that's what really can mess up a bullpen. It could extend for a couple weeks because they have to throw a lot of innings. You can see his splits by the month. April 4 games. And then the ERA really jumped up in May.
And it wasn't just the numbers, the ERA, although it's related certainly. In all 4 of his April starts, he got at least 1 out in the 7th inning.
Yeah. And that's huge. That can really help the bullpen for the next day.
2-2. And out in front of the changeup, another strikeout, 2 down.
Ricky's got his command working here early now, and that last two pitches, really the fastball is what set up that last breaking ball.
MLB.TV Premium, the #1 live streaming sports service, delivers everything you've come to expect and more. Watch every out-of-market game live in HD on over 400 supported devices. It includes a free subscription to At-Bat Premium, the #1 app for live baseball. Blackout and other restrictions apply. Visit MLB.TV for details. 1 strike to Geyer, who hit a fly ball on the second pitch he saw to Grossman and left. And you have to be careful with Geyer. That pitch came inside. He's already been hit by a pitch 15 times this year, 50 times in his career.
That might be an indicator that he's a diver, guy that just sort of steps out over the plate.
Fly to right, playable it looks like for Kepler, who now has to come in to make the catch. 7 in a row set down by Nolasco. 9 out of 10 retired by Nolasco, but a 1-0 Ray lead. On Fox Sports North is presented by Northland Ford. Visit northlandford.com and your local Northland Ford dealer today. And by Grand Casino. The best stories start here. What's yours? 1-0 Tampa Bay. Ricky Nolasco looks like he's got good stuff here tonight. Byron Buxton will lead off the bottom of the 3rd. And he takes a pitch up and in, ball 1.
Quite a few of Odorizzi's fastballs have been up in the zone. A couple times he's got Twins hitters to chase up, not catching up to that 92, 93 mile an hour fastball.
That's hit to the gap in left center field. Buxton's going to run for a while.
Oh, this is so much fun to watch.
He didn't need to slide. A leadoff triple here in the 3rd.
Something to look forward to by Twins fans. When that guy starts hitting the ball consistently, and the stride, the length of his strides is just special. I mean, that's the best way I can describe it. Watch him run.
1, 2, 3. I was going to count the strides. It goes too fast. But you're right. It's the length of the stride. He's not Dave Winfield's size. It seemed like Winfield would go from 1st to 3rd on about 9 steps. But boy, he can cover a lot of ground in a hurry. And now Nunez. Middle infield back, corner infielders up. Lifted into the seat, strike 1.
I say it tongue in cheek, and I always smile when I think about Gerard Dyson. And his greatest quote ever is, "That's what speed do." And you know what? It's something special about the game of baseball when a guy can run like that.
Foul back on the 2 strikes. And we've seen Odorizzi strike out 4 batters already. And Nunez generally is one of the tougher guys in the regular lineup to strike out. Now he's got to try to bear down and make sure he gets Buxton in from 3rd. Oh, 2 to Nunez. Fighting it off. go back to Buxton's triple, and there really isn't anything you can do if you're a fielder. You just run and get it as quickly as you can.
This is so neat because we're showing you a split screen of the fielder getting to the ball. He's picking it up as Buxton's rounding second base. That's how quickly he can go from home to second. There's nothing he's going to do. I mean, there's not an arm strong enough to throw him out once he reaches second base, because it's only, like you said, Dick, a couple steps and he's at third.
Buxton's second triple, and Roy Smalley pointed out after the first one, how many times do you see a right-handed batter hook a ball into the left field corner and get a triple? And that's where Buxton's first triple went. That never happens. It's a short throw from the left fielder, and Buxton made it to third on that triple easily. 1-2 to Nunez. Popped up. Very short right. Not even Buxton can score on this one. One down. And they'll bring up Mauer.
Yeah, that's a wasted opportunity there. I know that Nunez did everything to battle there, tried to put the ball in play, but the result didn't happen.
Mauer struck out on a 92-mile-per-hour belt-high fastball. Now, with one out, the Rays will bring the whole infield in.
Again, they don't do this with Joe Mauer very often. They're doing this because of Byron Buxton and his speed at third. I think Kevin Cash has recognized that Ricky Nolasco is getting dialed in.
Up and in. Ball one.
And one run could be the difference in this game. So managers typically don't take over till later in the game. But Kevin Cash trying to do what he can do to prevent a run here.
Tapped foul, 1-1. Mauer with 18 runs batted in. And everything you said about the opportunity the Twins had in the second inning is even more true here in the third. You got to get Buxton in, because Odorizzi in his last 3 starts has only given up 2 or fewer hits. To get the game tied up, you have to take advantage of the leadoff triple.
Yeah, that's a big run sitting there at third base.
1-1 to Mauer. 2-1. Back and forth game last night. Well, here tonight the Rays scored the first run. See if the Twins can at least get things tied up here in the third. Inside, just missed the corner, and it's 3-1. Dozier on deck.
If I'm Odorizzi, I'm going to be quite careful with Joe right here. You might have better results of staying away from Brian Dozier right now and getting a good result than trying to pitch to Joe Mauer.
And a 5-pitch walk will put Mauer at first base. Dozier has hit into 5 double plays, ground ball double plays on the year. That leads the team. And that's what the Rays are thinking here. Dozier struck out swinging his first time up.
Sometimes it doesn't take a trip from the pitching coach out to the mound to remind a hitter that. And I have never really been a guy in favor of a pitching coach telling a pitcher, hey, be careful with this guy. Either walk him or not walk him. You know, to say be careful with him, what does that really mean? But it looked like Odorizzi was really pitching around Joe there.
Down and away, and a strike on the outside corner. Off the plate, 1-1.
I'm not really sure why Hank Conger, he's set up 6 inches off the plate right there, and that's exactly where Odorizzi threw the ball, and it doesn't, to me, it doesn't serve a purpose. When it's that far outside, hitters can track it and recognize it. You've got to stay on the plate.
Popped up. Here's what we were talking about in the first inning. We know Brian Dozier is a dead pull hitter. Here's how the Tampa Bay outfield plays Mauer, a left-handed batter with all that room, and there's even though Dozier's a pull hitter, they're playing more conservatively, I guess, for Dozier. It just shows how extreme the shift is for Joe to the opposite field. 1-2, and now 2-2, blocked by Conger.
Well, those infamous spray charts will show that when Joe Mauer hits the ball on the ground to the right side, it's different than hitting the ball to the outfield on the right side. Most of the time he hits the ball in the outfield, it's going to center field or to left center or left field. And that's what spray charts are all about. They literally will take every at bat and put a mark where a guy hits the ball, whether it's a ground ball or ball hit to the outfield.
Long look in from Odorizzi, and now 2-2 to Dozier. Popped up, backing out of play. See only 8 base hits pulled to right field. And Dozier's hit even fewer of them. I mean, between the two of them, you've got one heck of a hitter. You got a lot of hits, and they're sprayed all over the ballpark. Two to Dozier. Actually, both players get a huge majority of their hits to left field. It's just one's a left-handed batter and one's a right-handed batter. Plouffe on deck. Twins trying to build an inning here, but first things first, got to get Buxton in from third base. Mauer goes, and the pitch tap foul in an effort to stay out of the double play.
That's probably a good move by Paul Molitor right there, trying to get Joe in motion, giving maybe Buxton a chance to score on a ground ball. It's up to Odorizzi to keep Mauer close at first base right here.
Full count to Dozier. And the pitch lifted over the Twins dugout. This will be the 63rd pitch of the night for Odorizzi. And he's only gotten 7 outs.
Dozier doing a good job. 8 pitches this at bat. He, I think, hit his home run in a similar situation last night. He battled and battled, and finally he got a couple real hittable pitches that he fouled off. And then he got another one from Matt Moore that he made a mistake in a breaking ball and hit the home run.
Another 3-2. Mauer's taken off on the last 2 pitches, and Odorizzi threw over there just in case he was a little over eager to take off again. Mauer goes, and the pitch grounded to short. A run will score, and sending the runner Mauer eliminated any chance of a double play. I'm not sure they would have turned it there anyway, but Dozier pulling one to the shortstop, and Buxton comes in from third.
Well, it didn't take a lot to score Byron Buxton. Ground ball to the shortstop. And that was a good job by the coaching staff to get Mauer in motion, stay out of the double play. There was only one play that Brad Miller had, and that was to go to first. Buxton too fast to have any kind of play at the plate. So the Twins score the dying run.
And now Plouffe at the plate. Struck out looking his first time up. Swing and a miss. Throughout your career, you were known as being tough as nails, but you see it happen so often, even to some good pitchers. There's so much focus in the Dozier at bat. Odorizzi trying to get out of the inning and wasting the leadoff triple, and then it doesn't work out right, and then it seems like more often than not the next hitter gets a base hit. Well, there's a not an intentional letdown, of course. There's a ball fouled back, 2 strikes.
No, you bring up a really good point, and that's the focus part of the game. I've said so many times the difference between the great players in the game in the everyday player in baseball is not a physical thing. They're all gifted athletes. It's how mentally tough are you? And focus is a big part of that, being mentally tough. You know, what you just said about Dozier's at bat, he's gearing up, trying to make a perfect pitch for 9 pitches, was it? And now he's got to get Plouffe out. Well, he's still got to have the same focus.
Base hit to right field. Mauer around third. He's coming in. Souza's throw to the plate. Safe. And Plouffe goes to second on the throw. A collision between Mauer and Conger. And Plouffe delivers the go-ahead single.
I didn't mean to talk through that, Dick, but that ball was up, and that was just exactly what we were talking about. He's got to get the ball down in the zone. He makes a mistake up out over the plate. You can see where Conger's sitting, but that's belt high. And driven by Trevor Plouffe into right field for the second RBI of tonight's game.
Kind of a dangerous play, and if anything, it looked like Conger got the worst of it. Mauer sliding in, feet first, and made contact with the left shin guard of Conger. Thankfully, it looks like both players are okay. Plouffe to second on the throw, and here's Grossman. And the Twins take a 2-1 lead. And there's ball 1. Those have to really hurt on an 0-2 pitch, and you get your location is off in part maybe because of all the pitches thrown in the prior at bat and in this inning. And now 67 of them thrown, and he's just in the 3rd inning.
I go back to how you command the ball on the inner half of the plate. You're 0-2. You've got a chance to waste a pitch, and there's no better place to waste a pitch than to move the guy's feet, because that makes him uncomfortable. You have a pitch or two to waste, and then you go right back outside, and even that belt high pitch is going to be a lot tougher for a hitter to hit once he's been moved off the plate.
On the outside corner, 2-1 to Grossman. Grossman with a bouncer to first his first time up.
This is the first time in the last 3 starts that Jake Odorizzi has given up more than a couple hits.
2-2. Gave up 2 runs to the Yankees on just 1 hit in his last start. 5 shutout innings against the Marlins in his start before that. 5 innings and 2 runs allowed in his start before that.
"70 pitches already."
And call 3rd strike. An off-speed pitch ends the inning, but the inning starts with a Buxton triple. 2 runs on the board now for the Twins. Minnesota. Can you enjoy one of Minnesota's newest breathtaking destinations, the Cuyuna Country State Recreation Area, located east of Brainerd near Crosby and Ironton. Cuyuna is an underdeveloped forest and park area. Extraordinary features, 25 miles of natural shoreline, great fishing, divers. Yeah, you can dive in some of the old mine pits, and boaters alike. to this new and underdeveloped recreation area. Find endless ideas for the perfect getaway at exploreminnesota.com. Share your favorites with #OnlyAnMN. It's an absolute haunted area for me athletically, because in Staples we would never ever do well in Crosby Ironton or Aiken.
Well, now's your chance for redemption.
Well, I went back in an effort to do just that. A pop-up foul backing out of play with Brad Miller. I was on the Twins caravan with Byron Buxton and Paul Molitor this winter, and we had an evening function in Aiken, and because of my poor athletic success in Aiken, I put on an Aiken Gobbler t-shirt. Kind of cathartic for me in a way.
Okay, back to Ricky Nolasco. He's got a 1-run lead right now, and he's been pitching very well.
Miller, Longoria, and Morrison will face him here in the 4th. It's hit to right and hit well. Kepler back, feeling for the wall. Boy, he played it like he's been out there for 5 years. Very well played by Kepler with that overhang, and he just put his left hand back, feeling for the wall, but he never took his eye off the ball.
Well done. Twins are excited not only about his swing and how he might be a very good hitter at some point, but already a good defender. And this is a good example of it right there. Not even close to the warning track, but thinking that he might be closer, excuse me, the wall, middle of the warning track, but thinking that he might be closer to the wall. And that's a good way to find out where you are, is just that arm extended.
Now, if Geyer had done that, and he was dealing with some, sunshine coming through the building here at Target Field, but if Geyer had done that, he very likely would have caught Nunez's drive to start the ball game.
Well, at least if he would have kept his eye on the
right,
ball, clanked off his palm of his glove.
Inside to Longoria, 2-1. Longoria with a homer over the center field fence with 2 outs in the 1st. Missed the inside corner, 3-1.
The one blemish that Ricky Nolasco has tonight was that home run in the 1st inning. The only hit that Ricky's allowed so far in tonight's game.
There's the outside corner to fill the count.
Great spot right there. But what makes that a good pitch is the fact that he was able to come up and in, give him a different eye angle. Now Ricky steps off the mound there. He had a second thought about that location. See if he changes location. Maybe just the pitch.
Now ball to short. Gobbled up by Nunez. Throws out Longoria. 2 down. That'll bring up Logan Morrison. If you're a baseball fan, then you need the all-new Fox Sports app. Get highlights, interviews, injury updates, scores, and instant alerts on your favorite teams and rivals. Download now in the iOS App Store, Google Play, or visit foxsports.com/app. 2 down, and now Morrison hit a ground ball to Mauer, his first time up. Changeup drifts outside.
We saw the pitch count for Odorizzi. Completely different story for Ricky. He's got pretty good low pitch count going into this inning.
And that's what we saw in April. That's why he was able to get those 7th inning outs. Got a chance to wrap up 4 innings on 50 or so pitches. 1-1 to Morrison.
Change up here. See that Morrison was out in front. Pitch location wasn't perfect, but when you change speeds again, you're messing with the hitter's balance. And Ricky, recognizing he hasn't thrown a lot of changeups in this game yet, so he's showing it there. For all you kids that wonder where you throw a changeup, it's always should be down and away. Never want to throw a changeup in.
How about that? Ricky Nolasco with another 1-2-3 inning. He's retired 10 men in a row. He's got the lead, and Byung-Ho Park will lead things off in the bottom of the fourth. Home Park starting to feel a little more comfortable. 3 hits and a walk last night. His first career 3-hit game, and I think significantly, Jack, they went to 3 different parts of the field.
Yeah, that's always good to see. That means he's hitting the pitch where it's thrown. Typically a good example of what you should do in tracking the ball. He worked the walk in his first at-bat here. So he's recognizing the pitches a little bit better and not jumping at the ball.
One thing I've noticed this year and last two, a high pop up to left field, and Dickerson won't have to make the play. Miller retreats to make the play in left, 1 down. And that'll bring up Kepler. Carsoup.com trivia question: who holds the Twins rookie record for most home runs by a right-handed hitter? I think I know the answer to that. Here is Kepler. Single to center his first time up. Started to say, since Paul Molitor became manager, and Paul, of course, a great hitter and great student of hitting, how many times when he's asked about a particular hitter and how he's doing, and you look at the box score and maybe there's only 1 hit, maybe 2 hits, and more often than not, Paul will comment somewhere within his answer about how many pitches that hitter sees over the course of a ball game in and at bat. There's a ball lifted to left center hanging up there for Dickerson. Somebody today asked him about Buxton, and he talked about, well, he saw a lot of pitches. And I think one of the secrets Paul believes in hitting is just that, being there and tracking the ball repeatedly and getting a look at the pitches coming your way in the hopes of getting one eventually that you can handle.
Well, it only makes sense that the more you see the same pitch, the more you're going to recognize it. And, you know, that's being a student of the game, no question. I think Paul's trying to encourage a lot of the younger players to just studying the part of the game, because you can learn so much to make the game easier for you, that, you know, put yourself in a better spot to take advantage of mistakes.
1-0. And Suzuki rips one off the shin of Longoria, and Suzuki will reach. Ouch. That hurt. Looks like I got him right in the ankle.
Well, if he's okay, that's the kind of play that you can really have some fun with your star player. Let's take another look at it before we start telling jokes. Ouch. Right in the bony part of your shin right below the knee there.
Here's Buxton. And he'll give Suzuki a base hit. And ball one to Buxton. Drove a triple to the gap in left center field. And now 2-0.
This could be interesting. If Buxton would hit the ball in the same spot as he did last time, he might be able to get home before Suzuki. And like you said, Kurt Suzuki's not bad for a catcher. It'd be fun to watch.
And a strike called on the outside corner, 2-1. Swing and a miss. One of the hands came off the bat there. 2-2. Into a beautiful night here with partly cloudy skies. We don't know how long it's going to last, but 2-2 to Buxton. His punch to right field. Souza comes in to end the inning. On to the fifth. Twins up 2-1.
The middle of the Minnesota State Lottery winner's circle. What a cool story. Father-daughter Tim and Rachel left South Carolina. 15 hours later, they're here at Target Field. They've still got to go to South Dakota, then on to Oregon. What a great father-daughter trip. And the centerpiece, of course, this great spot here at Target Field. How much fun are you having with Dad right now?
So much fun. This is a dream come true.
Well, hopefully that dream includes the 100 scratch-off tickets you guys just won. Maybe it'll pay for some of that gas money, making the trip all the way from South Carolina out to Oregon, through Target Field, through South Dakota. My head is spinning, Dick, but what a trip they're having.
Absolutely. Great to have him here at the ballpark tonight. Swing and a miss. And now 2 strikes to Steven Souza Jr.
The weather has worked out.
Rip fair past Plouffe into the corner. It'll hit the sidewall. Grossman will pick it up. Digging for second is Souza. Here's the throw, not in time. A leadoff double for Souza in the 5th inning.
Well, take away that last hit, we'll show some of the good pitches that Ricky Nolasco has thrown tonight. That's the one that Souza just hit. And really, location not too bad, a little bit up. but Ricky's thrown 55% fastballs, breaking ball at 39%, and just a couple changeups. He probably could feature a few more of those to get the hitters off balance a little more.
Particularly this left-handed batter might be looking for a strikeout of Dickerson here. Got him to hit a ground ball to Mauer his first time up. Down and in, ball one.
We talked about it his last at bat. Dickerson not afraid to strike out. And this would be a good spot for Ricky to try to get a quick out.
46 strikeouts in 157 at bats. One and 0. Pick off to second. Back is Souza.
I think they caught Souza by surprise there, but Ricky threw the wrong side of the base. It's called the glove play or the window play. The pitcher spins when that shortstop throws his glove out. Now Souza's going to take a peek at where Nunez is.
Foul back, left the pitch up, and Dickerson took a big whack at it.
And not just up, but he left it over the heart of the plate. Got away with one right there.
One and one to Dickerson. Breaking ball at 82. A well-located changeup would be a swing and miss pitch here, wouldn't it? Dickerson tried to turn on a fastball 2 pitches ago. 1-2.
Well, Ricky really hasn't gone up in the zone with Dickerson either. You wonder if maybe he'd chase up in the zone. Not much a hitter can do with that pitch. That to me is the best pitch in the game right there. Right below the belt, inside part of the plate. If a good hitter gets the barrel of the bat out, he's going to pull it foul. But see where this pitch is? It's actually something that really tied him up. And that could set up the pitch away right now. We'll see if Suzuki sets up away. Now he's shifting outside.
And an off-speed pitch at 74. Tapped foul. '60th pitch coming up for Nolasco, trying to get his first out of the 5th inning.
Through the first 4 innings, Ricky's kept his pitch count per inning under 15. 15 usually is a benchmark of, you know, efficient innings, and all 4 of the first 4 innings have been under 15 per inning.
Nub toward third, alert base running play, and Plouffe nearly waited too long. Cut across, and then he had a hard time getting a handle, with Dickerson looking into the dugout like he thinks that might be challengeable. But that's a really good base running play by Souza, who saw the slow ground ball in front of him. They won't overturn it.
I don't think they will.
It'd be foolish to try to challenge it, I think, because they would, based on what we've seen, there's nothing there to overturn, and so Dickerson will head back to the dugout. Souza now is at third base with 1 down.
Kevin Cash waiting for his video guy to give him a thumbs up or thumbs down, and they recognize that they probably wouldn't win that one, so Dickerson comes back to the dugout.
Matuk will bat. Twins bring the infield in. To center field. Buxton with the catch. Comes up firing to the plate. Just a little bit off target. A run to make the catch, and he had to make the catch on the backhand side. And his throwing rhythm affected because of that, and the throw just a little bit off target, and we're tied.
Well, had Robbie Grossman had a little bit stronger throwing arm, I think the play would have gone to the left fielder, but Buxton takes charge of it, and he has plenty of arm. He just throws it to the first base side. And somewhere in there, you're going to see the runner cross home plate before Kurt Suzuki tags him.
Well, the Twins were looking at whether Souza may have left third base too early, and they did, and determined he did not. At least I don't think they're going to. No, Plouffe going to third base. They're going to check and see whether he left early. And Alaska will step off the rubber and throw to third. Safe, says third base umpire Ted Barrett.
Have you ever seen an umpire say, "Go ahead, sit down, kid, you're not getting that run"? I mean, I've never seen that.
Worth a shot. It's not a challenge.
It is, and I've seen it in every other level except the major leagues.
Swing and a miss by Mater. We're tied now at 2 as the Twins took advantage of a leadoff triple to score a couple innings ago. Now the Rays get a leadoff double and work Souza around to score the tying run. 0-2. And Velasco makes quick work of Mater. The Rays tie it up in the 5th. A good ball game here, and those Pepsi fans of the game are enjoying it. We went back and forth last night, kind of got the same thing going so far here tonight. Well, you know why they're smiling. It's not just that they're at the ball game, but it's the end of the school year.
Yeah, exactly. It's just good to see kids at the ballpark.
Eduardo Nunez will lead off the 5th for the Twins against Jake Odorizzi. Strike one to Nunez, 0 for 2 in the ball game. Off the plate, and now 1-1.
Odorizzi is getting to that point where Twins, if they're patient, work the pitch count up a little bit, he might be gone after this half inning.
Popped up behind third. Longoria in foul ground near the tarp with room to make the catch, and Nunez is retired one away. I'll bring up Joe Mauer. June 8th, it's Superhero Night here at Target Field. A limited number of superhero theme night ticket packages are available that include a game ticket and Twins superhero t-shirt. For every ticket purchased, the Twins will donate a Twins superhero cape to a child at Gillette Children's Hospital, and a portion of the ticket will go to Gillette Specialty Healthcare. Go to twinsbaseball.com/superhero night to learn more about the superhero theme night offer. Mauer 0 for 1 with a walk and a run scored. He'll hit here with 1 out in the 5th. And a strike. Odorizzi was a part of the two biggest trades responsible for the Kansas City Royals' success. He was originally in the Milwaukee organization, and the Royals made the trade. Yuniesky Betancourt, Zach Greinke, and some cash, and got Alcides Escobar, Lorenzo Cain, and a right-handed reliever by the name of Jeremy Jeffers, and Odorizzi. So Odorizzi became part of the Kansas City organization, and he pitched for part of 1 year with Kansas City, a couple of starts, nothing too remarkable, and then they dealt him to Tampa Bay and ended up getting James Shields, Wade Davis, and another player by the name of Elliott Johnson. Without those two trades, both involving Odorizzi, the Royals don't get to the World Series in back-to-back years. Pitch is up to Mauer, and it's 2-2. Now, it's an example, I suppose, of a transaction, and hardly anybody in baseball had heard of Jake Odorizzi. Now he's among the best right-handed starters in the game.
Well, so many times you have to give up something to get something. And Odorizzi was the potential, I guess.
Right.
In both those trades.
Well, in each case, though, the Royals, they got their starting shortstop, their starting center fielder, the guy who kind of crystallized the rotation, James Shields, and now maybe the best closer in the game.
Well, Dayton Moore made a heck of a lot of good moves there, put that team together.
Mauer pops it up to left center field, and Dickerson with the call and catch 2 away. That'll bring up Dozier. And when I think of trades like that in the Jake Odorizzi's of the world, I remember your Tiger team in 1987 needed a little help in the starting rotation, so they went out and got Doyle Alexander, and it was a great trade for the Tigers in 1987, and it cost them a low-level minor leaguer. People had never heard of the guy, but they have heard of him now. That was John Smoltz.
Just a Hall of Famer. And I sometimes look back and wonder about those years. Had Mark Fidrich stayed healthy and been part of the rotation, there could have been a rotation at one point of Fidrich and Petrie and Smoltz and myself. And
right.
That could have been a little bit more powerful than some of the rotations that the Atlanta Braves end up with.
Too many right.
Too many. Yeah, we need a lefty.
We need a lefty.
Now we got Tanana.
That's true. 2-0 to Dozier. Twins with 4 hits. 3 of them have come after the second out. The exception, Buxton's leadoff triple in the third. Checked his swing, but he took a strike. 2-1. You don't know, do you? You make a trade for pitching, and sometimes it's the names that you don't hear of that have the greatest impact. When the Twins traded Frank Viola and brought 5 pitchers over, people had heard of Rick Aguilera, and because of his prospect status, David West, we didn't know that Kevin Tapani was going to be as good as he was.
Right.
2-2 to Dozier. Pulled foul.
Well, there's always risk when you have trades, and you just hope it all works out. The best trades are where it works out for both teams, but you always want to be the one that gets the better part of a trade.
Tampa people will tell you that the trade worked out great for them with Kansas City because they got Will Myers, and he was a big bat for them when they got into the playoffs the next year. Fouled over the Twins dugout. Dozier having another long at bat here. Remember, it was his ground ball that got Buxton in from third base in the third inning, and what, 9-pitch at bat, and that may or may not have had an impact on the next at bat when Plouffe got an 0-2 pitch up and drove it to right for an RBI single. Number 99 for Odorizzi to left. This is hit on the line. Dickerson's back, and it's over his head. Dozier will have an extra base hit. Another good at bat for Brian Dozier. He chewed up a lot of pitches and ended up with a payoff at the end.
Well, there hadn't been any activity in the Tampa Bay bullpen, but with that double right there, there's some stirring going on. See the pitch up in the zone, and you look out there, and Corey Dickerson got a little turned around. He's trying to track the ball, but because of his first initial move, wasn't able to get straight back, and the ball hits off the warning track, and Dozier gets a double.
And now Plouffe full bat. Now ball to Longoria. And he flips on the run, and the inning ends. On to the 6th inning. We're tied at 2. In our Sanford Health injury report, tough news for the Mets. David Wright, who's had so many physical issues over the last couple of years, has a neck issue now. They're going to rest it for 6 to 8 weeks, and then they'll have to build him up again. It's anybody's guess, and nothing more than a guess as to when he'll be able to come back and join the Mets, if at all, this year. Swing and a miss by Conger.
Well, that is a big blow to the New York Mets, a team that has playoff hopes again this year. Defending National League champions.
Makes some wonder whether the Mets will be active in searching for a new third baseman. 1-1 to Conger. Rays have just 2 hits, and they've gotten both hitters to score. One on a home run, one on a leadoff double. And Barrett says he went around, and it's 1-2. Velasco's been sharp here tonight. No walks. Not many deep counts. And he's about to try to get his 16th out on just his 68th pitch.
A really good strike to ball ratio there. He's just been pounding the strike zone, working ahead in the count a lot tonight.
A little number on a changeup, and Suzuki throws him out. 1 down. That'll bring us to Brandon Guyer. The Twins flex plan gives you the flexibility to choose your games and your number of seats. Choose in advance or even the day of the game. Don't plan, flex plan. Go to twinsbaseball.com/flex or call 800-33-TWINS to learn more. Down in the 6th, and now Guyer. A couple of outfield flies, one to left, one to right. Chases the pitch up. Cleveland Indians beat the Royals 6-1. So now the Indians are behind the Royals by just a half game in the American League Central.
Getting interesting over there. Tigers are leading right now over the White Sox. So the Sox
they would be just 4
sinking.
games back if they win. It's a shame, of course, because the Twins are at the bottom by plenty, but it is looking like it's going to be a great race in the American League Central. White Sox looked like one of the better teams in the league, but now they've really struggled.
Talked to Eddie Farmer yesterday about the Sox. He said the bullpen's throwing too many innings. Sound familiar?
Yes. They say with the batter Souza at the plate, he's a master at almost accomplishing what I think he tried to do there. A pitch down below the belt inside, and he just kind of rotates his hip in to get hit by pitches. Jammed there, and a little soft line drive to Nunez, 2 down. Ricky Nolasco, who was pretty good against the Mariners, if anything, I think is even better tonight.
Well, he's got to work it tonight. Pretty good command of all his pitches. He's hitting the spot. You can tell that by just watching Kurt Suzuki's glove, but been very efficient. Good pitch count right now. Some very nasty breaking balls. There to Conger. Another one there to Dickerson.
And now Brad Miller. He's hit a couple of outfield flies too. One to left, one to right. Up and away, ball 1. Down the middle, a strike.
I just get a feeling that, you know, maybe Ricky will be extended a little bit longer. He's got only 75 pitches, and he can throw 100, 110 when things are going well. It looks like it could be close to the end for Jake Odorizzi, and both starting pitchers have done a good job. Only 2 runs allowed by both sides.
Buxton wants it. And a 1-2-3-6. Robbie Grossman will lead off the bottom of the inning.
See if the Twins can get a couple runs for Ricky. Not sure they expected this out of Robbie Grossman, but boy, he really has contributed in a good way since becoming a Minnesota Twin. See the numbers this year, and let's just hope that continues because he's had good at bats. Let's take a look at his hot zones, and that would be the ones shaded pink. We tried to get hearts put in there to sweeten up the deal, but
ball 1 from Odorizzi. Grossman with a bouncer to first, called out on strikes his second time up.
Most hits are really down over the middle of the plate. 3 for 7 there, but right down the middle, 2 for 4. So that's 500. I think that's a better percentage. Needs a base hit to keep his hit string going.
2-1. It'll be Grossman, Park, and Kepler here in the Twins' 6th. Takes ball 3. Just missed the upper outside corner. And Park on deck. and miss, 3-2.
.105 pitches for Odorizzi. There is some activity now in the Ray bullpen, but you wonder how far, especially with a leadoff walk, that Kevin Cash is going to let him go.
Ball 4 was just about in the exact spot as ball 3, just missing the upper left-hand corner. Let's take a look at this plate appearance, pitch by pitch.
He starts him out where the fastball just got away from him. He comes back on the inside corner. Good movement right there. Fastball away that just ran off the plate, and then 2 balls that were just up in the zone. Or excuse me, there's the 1 fastball that he threw. And then the last fastball a little bit high. Jim Hickey, the pitching coach, is out there to discuss things.
And Barksdale makes it almost all the way out to the mound before the meeting breaks up. Park has walked and hit a pop-up to short. Erasmo Ramirez warming up. He pitched in the ball game last night.
Ramirez actually ended up with the loss in last night's game.
Park has reached 5 times in this series already. Nice block by Conger. That ball landed in front of the plate. 1-0. Last home run May 13th in Cleveland. A long time coming. Hopes to hit his 10th home run sometime soon. Now 1-1.
Yesterday before the game, Paul Molitor talked about how Byung-ho Park has been caught in between several times in the last couple weeks, and you can almost see that pitch right there, that was a pitcher's pitch, a breaking ball down and away, but he just had that look in his eye like he was looking for fastball, and then maybe was going to make an offer, took the pitch, just didn't look comfortable with that.
This is where you'd like to believe that there's a power hitter and a 2-1 count who can cheat a little bit.
Well, look for one or the other.
Right.
You don't know if he's going to throw a fastball or a breaking ball, but look for one and then commit yourself to it.
And that's been one of the issues too. We've seen him, and Miguel Sano did the same thing. A lot of strikeouts, but a lot of the strikes within the strikeouts on check swings.
Yeah, you just don't. Both of those guys have been guilty of that. And that's kind of a cardinal sin for a hitter. If you're going to commit, take a rip at it.
Up and in, and it's 3-1 with Kepler on deck. You've got production in this series from the bottom of the order. A leadoff walk to the number 5 hitter, and Park may follow suit.
Yeah, it's an important pitch for Jake Odorizzi. If he's going to come out of this game, it'll be because he walked the first 2 guys here to start the inning.
Swing and a miss. That's a full count.
And he just rears back and throws a fastball down Broadway.
The Rays letting it ride with Odorizzi. This will be pitch number 112, and the first 2 batters in the 6th inning each have had full counts.
That was actually a good throw over right there. You never know. Robbie Grossman, Paul Molitor might try to get him started to avoid a double play on that particular pitch. So good throw over.
Grossman stays put, and the pitch hit foul wide of the bag at third. Odorizzi well over the 100 pitch mark. We won't call it a limit, but the 100 pitch mark, and he hasn't gotten it out yet in the 6th inning.
You can see right there he's had a couple big pitch innings. The third 29 pitches, the second inning 24 pitches. And put that in perspective, Ricky Nolasco has not thrown 1 inning where he's thrown more than 15 pitches. I think 14 was his high.
And now flared foul, and Grossman again staying put.
But the Twins have worked a couple at bats into deep counts. A lot of 8-9 pitch at bats for the Twins. Ryan Garten now throwing outside Erasmo Ramirez.
Park has struck out about a third of the time. That's one of the reasons Grossman hasn't taken off here, I'm sure. And Odorizzi will try it again on 3-2. Grossman goes, and the pitch on a soft line to short. And the one time they do send him, they run into a double play, 2 down. Tomorrow, MLB returns with a game you can only see on FS1 when the Rays take on the Twins at 2:30 Central. And it's baseball night in America as the Yankees battle the Orioles for position in the AL East at 6 p.m. Central on your local Fox station, or you can watch it live on Fox Sports Go. Bases empty, 2 down, and now Max Kepler. Boy, what a big pitch for Odorizzi. And the Rays will let him pitch to the rookie Kepler with 2 down. And a pitch up and fouled it straight back. Kepler 1 for 2. Ground ball single up the middle in the second, and then a fly to left.
Well, Kepler getting some pitches to hit, putting some pretty nice swings on. You like his aggressiveness. He's starting to see the ball a little bit better. I'm sure he is relaxing at the plate, feeling more confident every day. Good take right there, and a ball that's up.
I wasn't surprised to hear him talk about the nerves, but I mean, he doesn't look like he's wound up tight at the plate. He doesn't chase a lot of bad pitches, or hasn't yet. Swinging a foul. 1-2.
He's got a poker face. A lot of guys never do show their emotion, but it's burning inside. I, on the other hand, love to show emotion. Yell at umpires, teammates, whatever it took.
1-2. Now 2-2.
That's just hard right there to lay off that pitch right. That high fastball. Odorizzi's gone up in the zone several times, but Kepler just kind of spitting on 2 of those high fastballs. Now Conger really wants the ball down, and he goes right back up.
So for all 3 batters here in the 6th inning, Odorizzi, who might be running on fumes anyway, he's had full counts to all 3 batters. Suzuki might have a chance here yet this inning.
It's truly a case where he's overthrown a little bit. He knows he's at the end. This is going to be his last hitter, and he wants to finish strong.
And Kepler takes a breaking ball, strike 3. Looking for a fastball, he didn't get it, and we've completed 6, tied at 2. The game tied at 2.
Evan Longoria gets us started in the 1st inning with a home run to straightaway center field. The Rays are on the board first, and Brian Dozier gets a little base, or not a base hit, but a ground ball to short that scored Byron Buxton in the third, followed by Trevor Plouffe base hit that scored Joe Mauer. The Twins were ahead at the point, and then in the 5th inning, Mikey Matuk drove in a sacrifice fly that scored Steven Souza. So all tied up at 2 right now.
Longoria to lead things off, and Nolasco starts it with an off-speed pitch and strike 1. Longoria with a 2-out home run to center for the first run of the game. And a ground ball to short. Outside, 1-1. On the ground, backhanded. Nunez with a 1-hop throw, got him. Eduardo Nunez in the hole, ending up in foul territory with a fine play.
The only possible way that Nunez is going to make that play right there is by getting rid of the ball quickly and throwing that 1-hopper to Joe Mauer. And I think you're seeing more and more shortstops realizing they don't have the arm strength to do the jump up in the air like Jeter did. And look at how quickly he gets rid of the ball here. One step, shifts into his throwing arm, and then throws it. Perfect strike, but a 1-hopper to Joe Mauer. And even though Longoria doesn't run all that well, great play.
Morrison will hit one to the gap, and he'll have at least a double. Buxton with the retrieve, a 1-out double. Just the 3rd hit allowed by Nolasco in the game. They've all been for extra bases.
Well, Ricky's just pitched too well to let them peck away and get a run here. He's got to figure out a way to get out of this inning. You mentioned it, only 3 hits. Here's the replay. The pitch was up and over the plate. Out of the strike zone according to Fox Tracks, but Logan Morrison reaches out there and drives the ball into the gap in left center.
Fox Tracks was presented by Carrier, and now Steven Souza Jr. doubled into the left field corner and scored his last time up. Nolasco misses. Down and away, ball 1.
Ricky hasn't worked out of the stretch for a couple innings, so this is going to be a little change, but you really have to bear down here. These are damage control pitches in a game that could be decided because of a mistake.
Cold foul, 1-1. Morrison's now reached in 18 straight games thanks to his double to left center field. Just off the corner, 2-1. That burns the edge, and it's 2-2.
Such a fine line that you have to have command to be able to locate that pitch down and away. You're kind of flirting with disaster if you stay out there over and over and over and not kind of straighten the guy up on the inside part of the plate.
Back.
Ricky just living on the outside corner right now.
Got him with a breaking ball. Beautiful pitch by Nolasco. 2 away. And that'll bring up Dickerson.
That's the way you execute damage control we just talked about. You've got to locate your pitches. You get the guy to swing out of the zone after you paint the outside corner with a couple fastballs. Flip the little slider up there and he chases. It's a big out right there for Ricky.
Dickerson's hit 2 ground balls, 1 to the right side, 1 to the left side.
His 5th strikeout of the night. No walks for Ricky Nolasco. Pitch count in great shape, 86 pitches here in the 7th.
Twins had to get 5 innings out of their bullpen in last night's win. We don't know, we might have extra innings for all we know tonight, but Nolasco certainly doing his part here to give a recovery start after Phil Hughes' short start last night. Time called. Lifted to left and foul. More and more we see third base coaches doing what Tampa's third base coach Charlie Montoya is doing. He's equidistant between third base and home plate almost. Nowhere's near the coaching box.
Well, that's to get a last minute look at any ball that's hit to the outfielder to see if he wants to send the runner at second base.
Well, that's fine. Morrison. But if you're going to mandate that they wear helmets for safety reasons, you should also mandate that they stay
in the coaching box.
No closer to home plate than the coaching box. Gene Glenn, we'll see him down the left field line sometime. 0-2. Velasco trying to strand Morrison. And somehow on the same pitch he got the barrel of the bat on it and hooked it foul.
Well, this critical pitch here for Ricky. He's done a good job of keeping the hitters from driving any pitch right here, and he has to. I mean, this is the ball game for Ricky Velasco. Got to believe Odorizzi's out of the game. The Twins have got some activity now.
Cracked his bat in the process. You can see the handle cracking right above where his hands are. And that's a tee shot down there. That ball was going to end up in the dirt.
Yeah, that's basically chasing out of the zone and still making contact. I've seen Kirby Puckett hit balls that bounced and got doubles. I mean, I'm not lying to you.
0-2 to Dickerson. And a pitch up, foul back. Dickerson doing a nice job hanging in there on 0-2 to be able to make contact on a pitch down in your shoe tops and then one letter high. He's covering the plate and then some.
Now, I like what Ricky and Kurt Suzuki are doing, though. They're moving the ball around, changing eye levels. We'll see if they come back in or wants to go away here.
0-2. Nice stop by Suzuki. That ball landed halfway between the grass and home plate.
And you have when you're 0-2, you can waste a pitch, and great job by Suzuki, like you just mentioned, to keep that ball in front of him. No way that Morrison was going to be able to advance, but Ricky can waste a pitch or two to see if he'll chase, see if that hitter is over anxious and going to swing before you release the pitch.
Now 1-2. Foul tip. Suzuki hangs on.
Good job.
And Velasco strands Morrison. 7 very good innings for Velasco, and we remain tied at 2. Paul Molitor patting Ricky Nolasco on the thigh, say that's a way to pitch tonight after a good outing against Seattle, an even better one here tonight. Wine, Women, and Baseball's back this year. June 9th, it's the first date with a limited number of special ticket packages that include a Twins stemless wine glass and a pregame hospitality event at Lowe's Minneapolis Hotel. You can learn more at twinsbaseball.com/WWB or call 800-33-TWINS. And again, it just seems like the type of event that would require an MC. Jack, either you or me. I mean,
I don't know. I think the girls should have fun. I hope
that's
they
true.
participate.
Almost by definition, they don't want us there.
They probably hear enough of us.
Ramirez in to start the bottom of the 7th inning. And Kurt Suzuki will lead things off, then Byron Buxton and Eduardo Nunez.
So Jake Odorizzi ends up throwing 6 innings of 2-run baseball. It wasn't an easy one for him, a lot of pitches, but he did get the job done. And now they're going to turn it over to the Tampa Bay bullpen to see if they can close out this. Got to believe that Ricky Nolasco might get another inning.
Another no decision for Odorizzi. He gets a lot of those, 7 of them already this year, 17 the last 2 years. Lifted foul and out of play, 1-1. Suzuki a single his last time up. Swing and a miss. Again, Suzuki swinging for the fences.
Well, that's a great example right there of not tracking the bat or the ball to the point of contact. You can see how his front shoulder just pulled right off the baseball. Excuse me, 1-2 to the leadoff man here in the Twins 7th. And a high fastball got him away. Before Byron Buxton's at bat, let's find Kevin Gord.
Yeah, Dick, Byron Buxton evolving as a young hitter. Of course, spent that time down in Rochester. Came back up. We talked to him yesterday about some of the adjustments. Now, the foot kick on the left foot is obvious, but he said the other thing he's been working on is trying to hit the ball in his mind to second base or further to the right side of the infield. He said it gives him more time to watch that ball come in. And even though every ball he hits isn't the opposite way, he tries to wait as long as he can in his mind, hitting the ball from second base to that right field line. And Paul Molitor backed it up, saying when he was a young player, he did something similar, looking at the shortstop and over to the right, trying to go the opposite way. 2 hitters trying to come together. Paul Molitor trying to be the teacher. This young man trying to figure it out. And lately, looks like Buxton's been doing a pretty good job of that.
Thank you, Kevin. A triple and a run scored his first time up in the 3rd, and a fly ball to right. Down and away. And if Max Kepler feels a little more comfortable with every at bat, I think you can almost see it in Buxton too.
I can, and I just think that he realizes that the last time they sent him down, he needed some work of better contact at the plate, better discipline, tracking the ball, all the things Kevin Gordon just talked about. But he knows, and I think the Twins have relayed the message, look, we're going to give you the time here. We like what you do defensively. Just keep working hard, try to improve every day, and you're going to be our center fielder for a while.
I don't think they would ever accuse Buxton of taking his failure at the plate out in the field with him earlier this year, but he was feeling pressure. He was discouraged because he realizes how much the team is going to count on him this year and in future years. 2-1 to Buxton. And a nice patient approach here. He's taken 4 pitches.
I think it's also a case where an athlete like Buxton, he's had success at every level he's played on except the major league so far, just expects to be part of the solution, to be a contributor. And it gets depressing for a guy sometimes when you push and push and push. you just don't get the results. So, you know, if he's got a competitive nature in him at all, which we know he does, he wants to be part of the winning ways and the winning tradition that gets started here.
Strike one was a swinging strike, and so too strike two. Full count. On the ground and through. He's got 2 hits tonight, and his speed is aboard with 1 out in the 7th.
This copyrighted telecast is presented by authority of the Minnesota Twins and may not be reproduced or retransmitted in any form, and the accounts and descriptions of this game may not be disseminated without express written consent of the Minnesota Twins.
Now some things are in play here with Buxton's speed at first. We saw it earlier going all the way to third on a ball hit in the gap. Now a stolen base situation here. Buxton is 2 for 2 in steals this year up here.
Yeah, he just hasn't had a lot of attempts. Hasn't been caught yet. You wonder if this is going to be a situation. Now, obviously, Kevin Cash, Jim Hickey, the pitching coach on the other side, is going to encourage Erasmo Ramirez to keep him close. They know his speed, but a good base stealer can still figure out a way to get a good jump and get down to second base.
Hank Conger's really had a problem with this year, and again, it's not all the catcher's fault.
No.
But he's thrown out 2 stealers in 17 attempts, a success rate, a throwout rate of 12%. And Nunez did not offer at it. It's ball 1, a pitch in the dirt.
Well, you can't help, and this is the other ingredient that a lot of people don't understand. As a pitcher, when you have the kind of speed on first base that Buxton has, you lose focus to that hitter sometimes because you're so aware of, one, your catcher, you got to give him a chance. He doesn't have the greatest throwing arm, and 2, that guy can flat out get a jump and run. So you got to quick step and do all the things to, you know, give your catcher a chance. Oh,
foul by a foot or so.
So it changes some of your focus as a pitcher to the plate. Nunez maybe can get a pitch that can take advantage of that.
No hint of a stolen base attempt yet. And the count's 1-1 to Nunez. Off the plate, 2-1. So we missed on the first pitch to Nunez. Got the foul ball to even the count. Now it's another hitter's count, 2-1.
And again, if Paul Molitor feels like Ramirez is going to throw a strike and Nunez can make contact, this might be a time where he gets the runner going
via a stolen base or a hit and run.
Yep.
Buxton does not go, and the pitch fouled away. Nunez with 172 at bats and just 30 strikeouts. He's frankly one of the toughest guys to strike out. The Twins held Grossman at first base after his leadoff single in the 6th until the 3-2 pitch to Park, and then Park hit a soft line drive with Grossman going, and it was a double play. 2-1. Excuse me, 2-2. Buxton stays put, and the ball chopped to third, and the throw to second just in time, and Nunez beats the relay. They just got Buxton at second. And a fine play with Longoria almost backpedaling. He still had the arm strength to get the speedy Buxton at second.
Well, that's why sometimes a manager's got to get involved and get the runner started. This ball was hit sharply. Longoria, one of the best in the game, and just beating the throw there, or beating Buxton down to second base. Had he had him started.
And they're going to challenge this, and they may win this challenge.
I think they're going to.
It's the 7th inning, so they have nothing to lose here. He's out, and so Nunez, maybe the unlikeliest double play the Twins have hit into this year, with speed at first and speed coming out of the box. But I think the Rays just ended the bottom of the 7th with a wonderful double play started by a backpedaling Evan Longoria.
Well, it was a good turn there at second base by Taylor Motter also.
The Rays want to get off the field, but of course the umpires instruct them to stay on the field. A good scoop at first all the way around. Nunez's left foot is still a foot from the bag, it appears, on that angle before or when Morrison digs the low throw out.
Third base umpire Ted Barrett is the crew chief, so he'll be the one waiting from New York, the call from New York, to decide what they're going to call.
I would have thought this would have been one of the quickest reviews, and now we do have a verdict. Joe Hernandez running back to first base, and double play is called. So we head to the 8th, tied at 2.
With this update, Twins and the Rays will continue their series throughout the weekend at Target Field. Saturday's game on Fox Sports 1, Sunday's game right back here on Fox Sports North. 12:30 for Twins Live. Tyler Duffy, the scheduled starter for the Twins. Twins Live at 12:30, first pitch at 1 on Fox Sports North. Now let's go back to the ballpark,
where we are going to have an exciting finish, and where Ricky Nolasco's not done yet. He'll pitch to the Rays in the 8th inning. Swing and a miss by Matuk. Matuk with 3 hits in 31 at bats. He's gone 0 for 1 with a sacrifice fly against Nolasco. Mater's hitting under 150. He struck out twice against Nolasco. And Conger is hitting about 175, and he's 0 for 2. And the only ball he's put in play didn't get out of the home plate area dirt. 1-1 to Matuk. That's hit deep down the left field line. Hooking foul. Wow.
It's a long strike.
Matuk, who tied the game with a short fly ball to left center field in the 5th, nearly put the Rays in front.
You can see Suzuki setting up away in that ball. Ooh, too much at the heart of the plate. But you got to keep it fair, kid, and you didn't. So let's reload and start again. Ricky catching a break right there. A big break.
1-2. And then he swings through another breaking ball, a better breaking ball.
Great spot right there. That's the way to come back and take advantage of a mistake by throwing a perfect pitch to end the at bat. Great location there.
Would have been a called third strike, and Matuk still missed it by a foot.
7th strikeout for Ricky Nolasco. No walks in tonight's game.
Taylor Motter has struck out twice, once looking, once swinging. It's hit to right center field, and that will be pushed forward by Kepler. He didn't catch it. And it'll be a bloop single in front of Kepler.
You know, that play right there, a lot of times you're taught, keep the ball in front of you. Don't ever let the ball get behind you. But Byron Buxton was coming around so fast, I think Kepler saw in the corner of his eye that Buxton might be behind him. So why not take a crack at it? And he dives, and would have been right in there, a snow cone catch if he would have kept it, held it. But ricochets right back to Brian Dozier. So Motter couldn't advance.
Keep an eye on Motter.
Have to see now if Kevin Cash decides to put the runner in motion.
Yeah.
Hank Conger is a guy that doesn't get a lot of hits.
Last year, full season at AAA, 26 steals and 34 tries. So Motter does like to run. Foul back, a strike. .100. The pitch count for Nolasco after this pitch.
Fernando Abad looks like he's getting loose out in the Twins bullpen.
Deep to the left field corner, but that'll twist foul. Hard off the limestone.
Right around his average, a little bit more, but Ricky's really been in command tonight. No walks, 7 strikeouts.
He has gotten 6 ground ball outs, and if he can get Conger to hit it on the ground at somebody,
good chance for a double play, right?
That's what he's hoping for. Breaking ball in the dirt, 1-2. Successfully pitched around a 1-out double in the 7th. Now dealing with a 1-out single in the 8th. Abad has had plenty of time to warm up. Kinsler is starting to get loose. 1-2 to Conger. Hit to the right field corner, a base hit. Motter will round second, and now Kepler fumbles the ball, and that will allow Motter to go to third. Not a clean pickup by Kepler. And Motter was going to stop at second base, but then he advanced to third on what will be Kepler's error.
You know, Ricky's just not allowed that many mistakes tonight, but that ball was left over the heart of the plate. And Hank Conger gets a good swing on it. Let's see where the pitch is. Right down the middle. Ball hit the right. We saw what Kepler did. He just pulled up a little bit. That allowed Motter to go. He was going to stop. You can see him holding up. But once he saw that ball being bobbled, he's easily going to scoot on over to third base. So it's first and third now with just 1 out.
Geyer, the batter. Plouffe already in on the grass at third. Mauer, of course, holding Conger at first. Nunez and Dozier bunched together, hoping for a double play grounder. Popped up, short center. Nunez backpedaling. Buxton calls him off, making the catch for out number 2.
Well, that's the right call for the center fielder. You're coming in on it. You don't want a guy to catch the ball as he's backpedaling, because he's not going to be set to throw.
Right.
And once the base runner saw that the center fielder took charge and Buxton, he didn't even try to tag. So good job for Byron Buxton to call it off right there.
And now Brad Miller. who has hit 3 outfield flies against Nolasco today. 1 to left, 1 to center, 1 to right.
He's just got to really bear down here. He needs 1 out. He's pitched too good of a game to make a mistake now.
Breaking ball smothered nicely by Suzuki. Not that it matters that much, but Miller in his career is 0 for 5 against Nolasco, including 0 for 3 tonight.
Well, you got their best hitter on deck in Evan Longoria, so you want to get Miller right now.
Fastball singes the outside corner, 1-1. Just off the corner with a breaking ball, 72 miles per hour, and it's 2-1. On the ground, past Dozier into right field. Motter will score, and the Rays take a 3-2 lead. Three hits here in the 8th inning. The Rays had just 3 hits coming into the inning. All of them singles, but now the go-ahead run, and Ricky Nolasco is done for the night.
Again, let's watch this pitch. Ball's middle half of the plate, about knee high, and just a great swing there from Brad Miller, and that kind of says it all for Ricky. He just pitches hard out tonight. He made a mistake there when he couldn't afford a mistake. Let's just hope that the Twins can get out of this and come back and get him off the hook, because he pitched a whale of a game tonight. To the 8th inning, and then 3 singles and what might prove to be a very costly error, and the Rays have the lead. Tonight's Cold Hard Facts brought to you by Clean Crisp Coors Light, and the bullpen ERA since May 24th, and the Twins second only to the Houston Astros. And the guy who's been a big part of it is the next pitcher, Brandon Kinchler. He has not allowed a run in his last 8 2/3 innings. Usually just an inning, maybe even a fraction at a time. Hasn't given up a run since May 11th. Well, here's a place where the bullpen coach Eddie Gordado has already informed him, look, pick your poison. You want to pitch to Evan Longoria or the left-hander Logan Morrison, because you need 1 out. And do you want this guy, who is one of the better hitters in all of baseball, or do you want to try to work on the left-hander with bases loaded? Tough situation, but you got to be careful and make a choice.
1-0. In the role that Kinsler is in as it reaches 2-0, more than ERA and all that is what a reliever does entering in the inning with inherited runners, and Kinsler has inherited 6 and not allowed a 1 to score.
Ricky Nolasco is really hoping that that'll be 7.
Chopper
it
to
should
short.
be.
Nunez goes the short way. The Rays get a run, leave 2 in the top of the 8th. They're back in front, 3-2.
The 8th. Stay with us after the game for Twins Live, presented by Century Lake. We'll take a look at a fine Friday for Ricky Nolasco into the 8th inning. Just couldn't quite finish that last half inning off. We'll see if the Twins can bail him out here. We'll also take a look at speed on the bases again tonight, supplied by Byron Buxton. A triple earlier led to the Twins' first run. And we'll also bring you inside the clubhouse and hear from the manager, Paul Molitor. Guys, it's been a great baseball game. Twins need to rally now and get Nolasco off the hook.
We'll see what they can get done here in the 8th against Xavier Cedeno. He's had a good year for the Rays. Cedeno appearing in his 21st ball game. All the numbers good, has not given up a home run this year.
Well, he's in there to face Joe Mauer for sure, the lefty-lefty matchup. Twins need base runners.
Kurt Casale in to catch because, in part perhaps, of Conger's difficulty throwing out runners. Strike 1. Mauer, Dozier, and Plouffe here in the 8th inning. And the Twins lineup, of course, for the last several games has looked quite a bit different without Miguel Sano. Desmond Jennings is in left field. And a strike called 0-2. Sano hitting 3rd or 4th. Provided a big power threat for the Twins, particularly on the road trip in Seattle. Had a streak of home runs in 4 straight games, but he won't be playing for at least a couple weeks yet. 0-2 to Mauer. And off the plate, ball 1. Joe with a walk and a run scored, 0 for 2. He struck out and fly to left. Check, swing, 2-2. His batting average down to .280, but he's still among the league leaders in on-base percentage. Came into the game with a .392 on-base percentage, 8th in the American League. The league average is .320, to give you some perspective. high, fairly deep to center. Retreating is Mata. Right on the edge of the track, makes the catch, one away.
Had him positioned perfect out there in left center.
This weekend, a full lineup of Twins baseball for you on Fox Sports North and FS1. Tomorrow the game is on FS1 beginning at 2:30, and the series wraps up Sunday back here on Fox Sports North Sunday afternoon. Pregame show starting at 12:30. Cedeno got his man Bauer. Now Dozier and Plouffe will face a right-hander when we come back. His 6th home run of the year to tie the game at 4. Just getting it over the wall and left. And the Twins would like him to tie the game at 3 tonight. They'll be facing right-handed reliever Alex Colomé, who was the closer and then for a very brief time this year was not, for the 16 pitches that Brad Boxberger was able to throw before he pulled his oblique. He's 12 for 12 in save opportunities, and one would think he'll be asked to get a 5-out save opportunity here.
He kind of is copying the style of a former closer with the hat wearing off to the side. Fernando Rodney.
Dozier takes a fastball on the outside corner, strike 1. And in the dirt. One and one.
They got Dozier pulled to the left side again on the infield.
Half swing and strike 2. Dozier has faced Colomé 3 times and reached all 3 times with a hit, a walk, and he was hit by a pitch. Limited exposure since the Rays are out of the Twins division. 1 and 2. 2 and 2.
You see the late movement on that breaking ball from Colomé. It's almost like it's a cutter. I know it's a slider, but it's got very late movement.
Dozier strikes out, 2 away. And that'll bring up Plouffe.
Watch the sink on this pitch. Just dives there at the end.
And now Plouffe, an RBI single in the 3rd when the Twins scored their 2 runs. As we move now in the 8th and into the 9th inning, the Twins have a bench of Arcia, Centeno, and Escobar. That's over the head of Longoria, and a fair ball right on the chalk line. And Plouffe will go to second with a 2-out double. Third base umpire Ted Barrett turned around and saw that ball land right on the baseline.
See the pitch here that is up and in. Trevor got a good swing on it. It does hit the chalk. We're going to see that right there. And now, I was wondering if this is going to happen. Eduardo Nunez coming out of the dugout to run for Trevor Plouffe. Twins need a run. Trevor Plouffe, not the fastest runner, even though he thinks he is.
Eduardo Escobar, the runner. And with 2 outs, Grossman will try to back up Plouffe's double with a base hit to tie the game. Escobar will stay in and play third base.
Now Nunez will probably go to third, and Escobar will play short.
Yep. And Grossman takes ball 1. Rare hitless game for Grossman. He did walk his last time up. Time call. That gets by the catcher, and Escobar will go to third. So Casali brought in for defensive purposes, and that might be called a wild pitch, but that's a ball that should have been blocked.
Should have been, but I think it's going to be called a wild pitch because the ball was in the dirt. Let's watch it again.
No, it wasn't.
Oh wow, it wasn't in the dirt. That is a pass ball.
And it was called ball 2. It's the first passed ball of the season for the Rays. They're the last team to have a passed ball charged to one of their catchers.
Well, and the difference being Escobar goes to third, but if Grossman could get him in now, it would be an earned run versus an unearned run. Or excuse me, the other way around, right?
Pass ball would be considered an error, so
right.
it would
So
be
it'd
an
be
unearned run. Yep.
Where a wild pitch is not.
Well, if it's a base hit to the outfield,
Yeah,
they can make it a moot point.
Exactly.
And that's a nice stop by Casali. That ball nearly kicked away and would have allowed the tying run to come in on a wild pitch.
This time he goes down to his knees and gets out front, blocks that ball with his chest. That's what catchers are taught to do. Keep it right in front of him.
3-1 to Grossman with Park on deck. Rays got the lead with a 2-out hit. Twins looking to tie it up with a 2-out hit. And a walk will send Grossman to first. And bring up Park with runners on the corners and 2 down. Park is 0 for 2. He drew a walk his first time up. Had a full count in his 6th inning at bat with Grossman on first, having taken his first walk of the night. And the Twins didn't send him, and then finally on 3-2 they did. And Park hit a broken bat line drive to Miller, and it was a double play. 3 hits last night and a walk. Trying to deliver his clutchest hit as a Twin here in the 8th inning.
Kevin Jepsen has been throwing this whole half inning, so he's ready just in case the Twins could maybe tie this game. He's probably coming in anyway.
Right. Down and away, ball 1.
Maybe nice to put him in a safe situation here. Like you mentioned, Park hasn't gone yard in a long time.
One and 0. Two and 0.
Well, this is a great hitter's count right here. Colomé struggled with this command in this at bat, and he's got to throw a strike. You don't want to go 3-0. It's got to be a fastball. So If you see something you like, be ready and take a hack.
Three and 0 with Kepler on deck.
I have the green light here. He's still going to be hitting if he gets a pitch he can handle.
Took it all the way. 3-1. Good average in counts like this.
100 points higher, 105 points higher.
3-1 to Byung Ho Park. Ball 4. And with 2 outs, the Twins have a double and a pair of walks, and Max Kepler will come to the plate with the bases loaded. Jim Hickey to the mound. A chance for retribution for Kepler in the top of this inning. The second of 3 singles, and Kepler, it's not like he looked up. He kept his head down with the runners going. He just didn't field the ball.
Yeah, he pulled his hand up a little too high, and that goes down as an unearned run for Ricky Nolasco. That's the deciding run as we speak. 3-2 Tampa Bay. Twins with a great opportunity. Kepler maybe base hit. Scored Grossman from second, put him ahead, and then it would be up to Kevin Jepson to maybe earn a save.
At the very least, Colomé, who's been asked to give 5 outs, had to throw 16 pitches here in the 8th inning. Regardless of what happens, unless the Twins take the lead and there is no bottom of the 9th, he might be asked to get 3 even bigger outs next inning. Bases full, 2 away for Kepler. And the ball fouled over the Tampa Bay dugout. He talked about the butterflies he's felt in these big league at bats. Chances are they're fluttering here. Swing and a miss. 0-2 on a breaking ball.
I don't think it's so much butterflies. I think this is where you really got to calm yourself down, because you just want to be the hero. You want to, number one, make up for that misplay in right field, but you want to hit the ball, be the guy to put the team in front. And sometimes young hitters are just over anxious. Obviously that swing was a pitch that he'd rather have back.
0-2. Strike 3. And Colomé strikes out Kepler, leaving the bases full, and it's still 3-2. Major league at bat, Max Kepler had a lot of pressure on him, and he got one pitch to hit, as it turned out, and it was that very first pitch.
Well, let's look at the pitch by pitch in his last at bat. There it is, a fastball over, and he took a good swing at it. He just did not square it up. Then he chases a breaking ball in the dirt, falls behind in the count, and a very good slider right there by Colomé just ties him up inside, and he strikes out with bases loaded.
Now Kinsler's still out there, so Jepson was only going to be brought in a save situation. Kinsler got the Longoria to end the 8th, and now he'll face Morrison. Swing and a foul. One strike. Well, the Twins sending 6 men to the plate in the 8th inning. So the 9th inning will start with Suzuki, Buxton, and Nunez, with bench players Arcia and Centeno available. And as you predicted, Escobar in at short, Nunez over to third. Just off the edge, and it's 1-1.
Brandon Kinsler has really done a good job of locating the ball on the outer half of the plate. He primarily stays away, but he's done a great job both to left-handers and to right-handers of painting the outside corner.
Popped up, and it will reach the seats. Now that foul ball hit in the air, but Kinsler gets his outs on ground balls, and has done so very effectively.
Yeah, and he changes speeds quite well, and I think a lot of his ground balls are on the off-speed pitch where the hitter's out a little bit in front. Now with 2 strikes, they're going to bring Escobar over and have the shift to the right side for Logan Morrison.
Fastball up high. Twins bullpen, as effective as it's been lately, has undergone quite a facelift since opening day. Boshears wasn't here. Rogers wasn't here. Coming out of spring training, Abad had to be added to the 40-man roster.
Yeah, you got to be a Twins fan to keep up with this thing.
Buxton will track this to the gap, all the way to the wall, and gone. A home run. Morrison taking Kinsler deep to the bullpen. And it's a 4-2 ball game.
Huge insurance run for Tampa Bay. Morrison showing his strength. He muscled that ball, pitches up and over the plate. And I think he knew it right away. Nice swing.
Morrison got a double in the 7th. And now this one, just enough clearance to get over the wall. They actually had some room to spare.
Yeah.
It was angled just outside the bleacher area. A leadoff home run on the 9th, and now Souza. Ball 1. Rays trying to end a 5-game losing streak. There's a strike on the outside corner. Over the Twins dugout, 1-2. Suzuki set up inside, and Kinsler almost chewed up Souza's bat. Inside off the plate.
You got to throw a few there to keep him honest. That ball had good run to it. Fastball that ran off the plate, but that's a good spot to throw that pitch.
And now 2. The home run by Morrison brought to an end Kinsler's 9-inning shutout streak. Had given up a run in 9 innings. Spread out over 10 appearances, of course. Down the middle of strike. And Souza thought it was ball 4. 1 away. Back to our trivia question. Souza still discussing it with Lance Barksdale. I want to say Marty Cordova, so I'll say Marty Cordova.
I'll say Gary Gaetti.
Hey, very nice.
The reason I know that is I think Gaetti got about 6 or 7 off me that year.
He got 2 of them on opening day at the Metrodome and got thrown out at home plate for an inside the park home run. He would have christened the new ballpark with a 3 home run game.
Well, that first year, that was an experience for visiting pitchers, that's for sure.
Swing and a miss. Dickerson late. For those of you who might have gone to the Metrodome in those early years, the turf was so springy. There was no extension to the wall, even in right field where the big baggie was. It was just a 7-foot wall, and there would be ground rule doubles on the second hop.
Yeah, it was not a friendly place to come and play. The roof was new for a lot of players to pick up the ball, visiting players at the Dome.
Down and away. Casali, the batter, brought into the ball game for defensive purposes. Got a couple of hits last night, and now he is called out on strikes. 2 down. Well, in the 7th inning, Morrison hit a double, and in the 9th, he hit a home run on almost identical pitches.
Yeah, you see the location of both these pitches, I should say. One off of Ricky Nolasco, and the home run off of Brandon Kinsler, both up and away and showing his strength.
You're right. Morrison knew that he had gotten enough to hit it out a few moments ago. Tossed the bat away. 1 strike to Mato. Just a bit outside. 1-1.
You know, this is really a game that will see if the Twins have that drive that they need to stay grind it out the last inning. See if they can make a comeback. If Kinsler can get an out here. They're down by 2, but you just don't want a team to give away at bats late in the game and throw in the towel. You want them to keep grinding. Maybe something good can happen. It's going to be the bottom of the order: Suzuki, Buxton, and then Nunez.
Driven foul. 1-2.
You might even see Oswaldo Arcia get an at bat for Kurt Suzuki.
And Kinsler makes the catch on the first hop. It's the 2nd home run that Kinsler's allowed this year. And it came leading off the top of the 9th, and the Rays lead by 2. Longoria in the first inning. And then a big home run by Morrison to make it a 4-2 ball game. Colome's out there. He delivers high to Kurt Suzuki. Colome threw 19 pitches in the 8th inning and now will be asked to get 3 outs here in the 9th. Suzuki, Buxton, Nunez scheduled. Centeno and Arcia on the bench. And strike 1-1. Colome had never gotten a save before this year at any level. This is his 10th year of professional baseball, and he had never gotten a save, in part because in the minors he was primarily a starter. But you never know where a good closer is going to come from. Tampa Bay Rays will still tell you they had Wade Davis and they asked him to pitch in the bullpen because he was struggling as a starter, and he didn't want to pitch in the bullpen at all. And now he's in Kansas City, not only pitching out of the bullpen. For a couple of years he was the best setup guy in the game, and now he might be the best closer in the game. 1-2 to Suzuki.
There's a lot of hit him.
And that hit Suzuki, and the tying run will come to the plate in Byron Buxton.
Twins catch a break there. You don't really like to see a guy get plunked, but I don't think that really hurt Kurt Suzuki. And they get a base runner out of it. See how he turns. This is the way to do it, kids. Turn. Ball hits off the elbow. He does not wear an elbow pad. It's really off his bicep, but in either case, that's not going to hurt Kurt Suzuki. He's taking a lot worse.
Buxton has 2 hits. He's put the ball in play all 3 times. The average has crept over 200. Takes a fastball down the middle of strike.
Again, this is a young player, and it's a tough situation to be in. You want to keep the game moving. He needs to be on base. But you also have to show patience as a hitter and get a pitch you can handle. The first one he just tracked, not having seen Colome.
One and one. Swing and a miss on a breaking ball.
Colome's got a quick, tight slider. He showed Max Kepler that with 2 strikes through a great pitch, and that was a similar pitch away from Byron Buxton. I imagine he's going to come right back with that same pitch. That's his go-to pitch when he's ahead in the count.
Got him with a breaking ball, and Buxton's gone on strike, 1 away. And now for what's next, brought to you by CenturyLink. Urban Santana going for the Twins. It's on Fox Sports 1 tomorrow, starting at 2:30. Andriese has been very good for the Rays. Now Nunez looking for his first hit. Not gotten a ball out of the infield, which has been rare for him, and he grounded into a double play in the 7th. Mauer on deck. Base hit right field, and so Nunez gets his first hit. The tying run is aboard. Nunez takes a backseat maybe only to Buxton in terms of team speed, and his speed is on at first base for Mauer.
What a great time for Joe to maybe hit a gapper and watch Eduardo Nunez take off running. Main thing is just to keep the base pass moving. Joe very good at the strike zone, knowing you go deep into a count, maybe work this count a little bit, but the Twins want him to drive a ball in the gap more than anything else.
Hard to do that. The Rays outfield shifted around toward left field and playing very deep. Now, if he could hit a ball.
Pull the ball down the right field line.
If he can bust his bat and drop it over Morrison's head, we probably got a tie game. On the middle of strike. We've seen Mauer this year with the 6 home runs, with enough, I think, leg strength to drive the ball over the left field fence. In his great career, he's had 1 walk-off hit. That was a single, and it came 9 years ago.
That's amazing, really. It's hard to believe.
Swing and a miss, 0-2. Well, the Twins have this set up. Barring a game-ending hit or a double play, the Twins will have their most experienced hitters up in a game-winning or losing situation in the 9th. Love to have had Kepler come through with a big hit last inning, or Buxton a moment ago. But it'll be Mauer and then very probably Dozier. 0-2. To left field. Jennings with the catch on a line drive. Mauer lines into the 2nd out of the inning.
Good read, good jump by the left fielder, put in for defense. Desmond Jennings out there in left field.
Jennings got a good jump, made the catch. A well hit ball, and now Dozier. Dozier in one homestand last year had 2 game-winning walk-off home runs. A double and an RBI on a ground ball.
Well, they're going to pitch him away, and Dozier's mindset is to pull the ball over the fence. So we'll see what happens here.
In the dirt, ball 1. If Dozier keeps the game alive but doesn't win it, Eduardo Escobar would hit next. He entered the game as a pinch runner for Plouffe in the 8th. Colomé had control issues in the 8th inning. After Plouffe's double, he walked Grossman and Park. He walked, or actually hit Suzuki to start this inning. Two and 0 to Dozier. A high fly to left, a mile in the air, and about 250 feet from home plate, and the game ends. Had a good ball game last night, and the Twins won by a pair. Tonight a good ball game, but the Twins lose by 2. Tom Hanneman, which will set up Game 3 tomorrow.
Dick, Tampa Bay snaps a season-high 5-game losing streak with a 4-2 win tonight at Target Field. Up next on Twins Live, we'll talk about their breakthrough in the 8th. A terrific performance from Ricky Nolasco. We'll hear from Paul Molitor and preview Game 3 Saturday afternoon.